say that I have peace that surpasses all understanding. I have joy that surpasses all understanding. And I have strength that surpasses all understanding because of Jesus Christ, because he's real. And I've been able to share that in front of 196 nations. I've been able to share that with big, influential people in the world, to ambassadors. You know, I think the hardest time when I shared about Christ was at the UN. Here I was in their circle of countries and countries sitting. Actually, they're back to me. And in front of me is this half circle of the top UN officials, and over 196 countries, ambassadors. And here I am, and I know I'm supposed to talk about Saeed, but in my heart, I know I'm there to offer them something they don't have. And it just sounded so silly to say Jesus loves you in front of all those people. But you know what? The verse that came to my mind was this: the world sees it as foolishness, but it's the wisdom of God. Because it is. It doesn't make sense, but it's so powerful 2,000 years ago. And what God has done for us, and so many still lives change. Each of us have a story of grace. And so that was the hardest time in my life, opening. I was just like, Lord, I'm just going to open my mouth. And these people are looking at me funny. All these countries were turning around just looking at me. And it just was hard, but I opened my mouth and I said, Jesus is the way to reconciliation with God. And he's the God of peace you're looking for. For 2 weeks, they're trying to resolve the world problem and bring world peace. And he's the way. You're ignoring the way that to have that peace, that the answer to all of our problems in humanity. And so it was hard, but I opened my mouth and I said it. And, you know, I didn't spend a dime to reach millions for Christ in the Middle East, to be on secular media that doesn't like talking about Christianity, but because it was news, they allowed me to talk, and I got to share with the Iranian people that, you know, the person who was with me sharing, and it was live. It was the first time I was on live Iranian TV, and I'm thinking, do they know what they just did? Because I've been on taped ones where my friend who used to work for media, she said, just say Jesus, Jesus, Jesus. And so many times that if they have to cut it out, it just sounds weird. And so I was ready to do that. I was ready to just say it. And I go to this thing and I'm ready for a taped interview and it's like 5, 4, 3, it's like live. I'm like, wow, this is great. But it was hard. It was hard because my Farsi is not that good. And the person sitting next to me was like a doctor and something. And he was using these big words. And I was just trying to catch one word to see like what he was talking about. Because 80% of his words I couldn't understand. And so I'm like, I just need to, get some words so I can just still, be in the game and don't look stupid when, he says, what do you think? But you know what I got to share with my people? This guy was saying that we shouldn't lose our culture. We should cling to our culture and to our religion of Islam. And I got to share to my people, millions and millions that were watching on prime time, that 600 years before Islam was Christianity in our country, and we were the first to worship Jesus at his birth. The Persians. We were the first at the day of Pentecost. I just learned a lot of the Persian poets wrote about Jesus. And so it's part of our culture. It's a lie of the enemy. A lot of people in the Middle East think if they become Christians, they lose their culture. And I got to say that's not true. And it's interesting because the host asked, actually, is it illegal to become Christian? And the lawyer who knew the Iranian law, he was from Iran, he said, no, according to Iranian law. So here I am telling the Iranian people, become Christian, and here's the lawyer saying it's not illegal to become Christian. Because, a lot of people say, well, he broke the law. I want to share this because a lot of the criticism says he broke the law, he deserves it. Iran, in its internal law, allows for conversion. Saeed and I, when we got married, I know my time is running out, but I have to share with you. When we were married, we went to the Iranian government. It was a more moderate president was there. His name was Khatami. It was before Ahmadinejad. We went and said, we're Christian converts and we want a Christian wedding. And they said yes. So they recognized our conversion because in their law they can. And we had my pastor, Bob from Calvary, come. And there was this church, and the Iranian government thought, oh, they're going to invite 30 people. It's just going to be over with. We thought 300 because we invite a lot of people. And we had wedding favors, Bibles, and Jesus films, and they had the little. And 600 showed up. And I have the video. And I need to show it when Pastor Bob's here. But people are getting saved. It's not a church. It's not a wedding. I actually got in trouble for it afterwards because it was not about me. He's up on the pulpit, like preaching. People are getting saved. It's like worship. And I'm just sitting on the side, kind of like in my wedding dress, thinking, I imagined something different for my wedding. I have to be honest. He did get in trouble for that. We had a fight afterwards, but it was, people got saved. It was all about Jesus. It was Saeed's chance of doing a crusade. He knew he had a church. He knew he had the church. He knew he had the government's approval. But here's Revolutionary Guards circling the church. And my wedding photographer, who in Iran it's illegal to drink. He'd had a few drinks, not at our church. We didn't have drinks there, but he's kind of scared for himself because he's like, do you know there's Revolutionary Guards circling the church? And we're like, shh, don't tell the Americans. They're going to freak out. Well, there's Revolutionary Guards, and I didn't tell my pastor till later, circling the church with guns as we're in the center of Tehran, the capital. There's worship blasting out in front of one of the largest mosques in the city. And that was our wedding. But I need to bring the video someday and to show it. But it's not illegal in Iran, in its own law allows for conversion. It allows for peaceful gatherings. Iran sits on the Human Rights Council of the UN. So in the international laws that it has continually agreed to, every year they agree to it more and more, like every year they can sign into it. They have said they allow for religious freedom, they allow for conversions, they allow for peaceful gatherings. So I wanted to share this because according to Iran's own law, they're holding him, Saeed, illegally. They've tortured him illegally, they're holding him illegally. That's why there's been the UN, the European Parliament, the EU, so many people, human rights groups that are not Christians have spoken out because this is an obvious violation of human rights by Iran. So, but I want to close with this, if anything. I want you to, one thing that the Lord, I didn't plan, my heart was to reach the nations. And my heart was missions, but it didn't turn out that way. Our house churches ended up, after we left, falling apart. Our marriage was falling apart. Everything just went flat. When Saeed and I had no plan, our desire was the nation to share the gospel, but we didn't have money, we didn't have a ministry, we didn't have a plan. But it's the same time, there was a moment I knew I had finally learned, and I can't say I've learned it now, but I started getting the hang of dying to myself. And that moment, I just could sense God moving, saying, okay, now you've backed off, now I can move. And from that moment, it's been the learning process of dying to myself and just being like, but this is his message, is when you learn to die to yourself, you're not worthy of being his disciple unless you die to yourself, your desires, what you deserve, what's good for you, your plans. Saeed and I had no plans, and we had no money, but God has reached 196 nations with the gospel. God has reached over 50 million Iranians with the gospel of Jesus. God has reached ambassadors. I've had private meetings with government ambassadors, with people, influential people. A couple weeks ago, I met with Donald Trump, and